Hello and welcome to another edition of Nation Building. On this program, we examine the political, social, and moral issues in the leadership of the Bahamas. We have a very exciting program for you today, and so when we come back from the break, I'm going to introduce my special guests. Stay tuned.
It's a new day. This is our new day. And in the blue glow of the morning, there's still time to reach back into our dreams. To become dreamers in the daylight. And live our lives and hopes with open eyes. Yes. This is the day to do the things that will fill our lives with joy and with love. Dreamers in the daylight. Anything is possible. This is our new day. We are alive.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama Coconut Milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau. I don't wanna win. No, no, I don't wanna win.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. And on our program today, we are going to take a somewhat of a look back very slightly at the 2017 general election, the results. But more so, we're going to look ahead, which is most important, on what the new administration, the Hubert Minnis administration, has planned for us. We've just come out of the recent budget debates. And so there's a lot on the table. There's a lot the new administration has ahead of them. Of course, we wish the new government administration well. It is our hope that they would correct what they campaigned on in the political campaign on that needed fixing in our country. And of course, everybody wants improved economy for the Bahamas moving forward. And I believe this period has been one of the most challenging period the most challenging in our country's history, certainly since an independent Bahamas. And so today on our program, we're going to have a frank discussion about the way forward and lessons that we should learn, and especially those in political life should learn from the 2017 general elections, which was very historic in many perspectives. And so we're introducing our guests. Today on our program, we're very pleased to have Minister Kevin Harris, who is with us. Minister Harris, welcome back.
Thank you.
To Nation Building.
Appreciate it.
You're becoming a staple, and that is because you have a wealth of knowledge and information. And as a young man, you're still very young.
Absolutely.
You are passionate, I know that, about the future of our country. And I believe you can be very unbiased when the need arises. And so this is one occasion for us to take a look at the election results, what they mean, what were the Bahamian people saying, and what is the way forward for our country. So let's start by taking a look back. We had an incredible election result is the best adjective I can come up with to describe it, in that we had a what more than a landslide victory for the new government, the Free National Movement led by Dr. Hubert Minnis. We have the opposition party, the Progressive Liberal Party, only left with 4 seats in Parliament. This is a first. And the magnitude of the victory for the Free National Movement clearly means something. The voters, I believe, were saying something significant, and the way it was done. Let's talk about that for a minute. What was the general sentiment you got from the magnitude of how loudly the people spoke?
Well, I believe the 2017 general election, the overall message was one of reform. The Bahamian people had come to the point where they were no longer confident in the previous administration. The Christie administration had 5 years. In 2012, they were given a equally large mandate by the number of seats.
Almost.
That's right. Well, just about almost equally, yeah, but still was huge. At the time, I think they had around 30 seats. The Bahamian people expected Mr. Christie and his team to come out the gate, working on a number of things they had indicated in their Charter of Governance in 2012. But instead, the country was almost, shocked that the first major ticket item for the Christie administration was the referendum on gaming. After the Bahamian people were denied in their voting, where the vote was overturned by the government, the Bahamian people voted no on the 28th of January 2013 in that gaming referendum on 2 questions: no to the expansion of web shop gaming and no to the introduction of a lottery. The Christie administration had other plans. They wanted to help the number boys. So they went to Parliament and did something that we'd never seen in our parliamentary history. They overturned the results of an election. That, to me, and to many people, was the beginning of the end of the administration.
And I'm sure the Christie administration, they've said on a number of occasions that the referendum was a part of their campaign, that they would put the issue to the people. So the fact that the referendum was brought up early in the administration was not shocking, I imagine. It was, you're referring to the fact that they went against what they had promised to.
Yeah, but they had promised more than one referendum. They did promise a constitutional referendum, which they chose to do second or more towards the end of the term. They could have gone with that first. But they went with the gaming referendum, which was confusing to some people because the people saw right through it. They figured this was for a special interest group, for a bunch of guys, not necessarily a benefit to the country. And some people were screaming more for a lottery more than a gaming expansion, etc. The bottom line was, it wasn't the fact that they held the referendum first or early. It was the fact that they reversed the results that the people gave them.
Right.
That led to a vote of no confidence quietly among the people right there. And I believe that was the footprint that led us to the 2017 general election landslide for the Free National Movement.
Question. Why do you... the country has had a history of failed referendums. There has not been a successful... Some would say that the 1970... what is it, 73?
You know about the one for independence?
No, sorry. That was in 72.
72.
The 1972 general elections. If I'm not mistaken, the 10th of January 1972. That election would have been a referendum, some said.
On independence.
On independence.
Right.
Rightly so. But it was a general election, so it wasn't a referendum. But so outside of that, there hasn't been a successful referendum in the country. Is it that the Bahamian people just enjoy voting against these things, or is it that every one that has been put to the people have been bad?
I believe that the successive governments have not listened to the people. First of all, I think in most cases you should pretty much go with one issue on the table instead of multiple questions, right? Second of all, you need to bring the issue or the question that the Bahamian people, that they are interested in. If it is a reform matter, like for instance, going in and saying we want 2-term limits only in the Constitution for Prime Minister, or we want to institute some kind of recall system. These are things that the Bahamian people have echoed and said, we want this.
Fine, but let's just address the first point you made. Are you saying that the Bahamian people are not intelligent enough to be able to see 10 items on a referendum and decide of those 10 items, what is it that they want to see become supreme law in the country, and the items that they wish not to endorse? Are you suggesting that that it's so complicated that the people can't intelligently look through these things and vote their conscience on each item? Because certainly if you're going to have a referendum with just one item, I mean, there's a number, for example, now and even in the past administration, there were a number of issues, number of questions, a number of law that needed to be amended or needed to be entrenched, that needed to be put to the people. And so some would argue, why not put many of those items and allow the people to look at these different things and speak to, because elections are very costly.
Yeah, but I think it's
over
not
$3 million spent just on the last referendum.
And it probably doesn't have to be that costly. But I would say that, number one, this is not about whether or not the Bahamian people are intelligent enough to have a multiple choice option. This is about, first of all, from the government's perspective, how do we effectively achieve our goals? So sometimes in life you got to prioritize. If I've got 5 major things I want to see done in the term, perhaps I may need to have 2 referendums within that term, and I may can either put 2 questions on at maximum on the ballot at each time, or perhaps 1 question if I feel as if it's something that I don't want. This is another strategic perspective. I don't want it to become too convoluted, because if I have more than 1 questions, sometimes what happens is that one of those questions may become the controversial question, and it overshadows the other major ones you want to get accomplished. All right? And so if you have more than, say, 2, you could end up with your opposition finding a way to strategically speak to the masses and say, I want to build mistrust in one of these questions because I don't want to see the government succeed, and you could end up losing the whole thing.
Minister Harris, I've heard you, but haven't we come, and aren't we coming to this place of maturity where we can look at issues, intelligently analyze what we want and what we don't want, and vote for and against these issues? And secondly, why is it that opposition parties, whether it's the PLP or the FNM that has been in office and taken turns at playing the opposition role, why is it that they have consistently gone against issues that are good for the society? For example, in the 2002 referendum that the Free National Movement brought up, there were a number of items there, for example, the issues with the courts, with the age for judges. There are a number of things that, the gender equality issue, there are a number of things that people said they didn't have a problem with. In fact, they supported. However, it became a campaign of one side against the other side, and especially when you have a situation where it's late in a term, you end up finding where the opposition party then decides to just go ahead and campaign against something to get the people to vote against that party, and it's madness.
Well, I think there are 2 dynamics. I think you've actually you've spoken to what I addressed earlier, that the risk you take in having too many questions is that your opposition in the country wants leverage. They're interested in overthrowing you at the polls. So they're going to look at at that opportunity rather and say, listen, is there somewhere on this list where we can have a say that can influence the populace to say, you know what, this isn't good. Let's go another way on this issue. Now, let's say there were 5 issues. The opposition may agree with 3. But there may be 2 that they believe they don't agree with, and they think the people will go with them. That is, again, why I have said...
So it's all politics at the end of the day, unfortunately. It has come down to that, and that is sad, isn't it?
Okay, let's say, for instance, 2002, and it is sad, but let's say 2002, if the only question was the age of a judge being able to sit, you really think that was going to be an opposition matter? Hardly. It would have probably passed. So when you have issues that you really want to successfully placed into constitutional advance, if there's a constitutional referendum, then you need to be deliberate in how you approach it, particularly since you've seen the pattern of how our people have approached these referendums. I don't believe, however, that if the Menace administration moves forward with, for instance, the question of term limits for Prime Minister, I could not see that being defeated. I could see
it would be the first successful referendum in the country.
Because most Bahamians already have determined just even through our voting, people believe that it has been a silent kind of referendum already in the fact that we've changed governments just about every time.
In the last 20 years.
Right. So most people are already in the mindset, they're already in the mood, that if you put that question to me, yes, I would support the fact that we should put into law that a person can only serve 2 consecutive terms.
While on that note, do you believe that Dr. Hubert Minnis, Prime Minister Minnis, will in fact go ahead with that and honor his commitment to the Bahamian people and early in the term put it forward?
Well, I think whether it's early or late in the term, I think he's going to do it. I believe that he will honor his word. I believe it's an advantage to honor his word. Because if he does go ahead with it, it will certainly say to the Bahamian people, here's someone we can trust as a leader. This is a big ticket item they promised during the campaign. He's delivering on it.
You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Alive knows what you do today will determine the success of your tomorrow. So we've invested in world-class infrastructure and innovation so every business in the Bahamas can grow. Like our online business account that lets you manage all your business mobiles simply and efficiently through one portal. From adding users and numbers to drilling down where you can view details of individual data, calls, and texts to providing an immediate overview of usage month on month. We put you in control. Our people are here to help your business grow. Our relationship managers take the time to understand your business. And with our care team and our Alive stores, we are there to support your business needs. So let's work together, Bahamas. Let's grow together. Let us be part of your team. Let's do this.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
You bring passion, and we bring world-class infrastructure and innovation that's designed to help your business grow. You have determination. We've got your back with a super-fast LTE network, giving you access to whatever you need, when you need it. You offer superior service, we put you in control. With a dedicated care team to look after your business 24/7. Together, we have the advantage. Alive, let's do this.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from DEMS 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice Medley has on me is exhilarating.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and today we're having a conversation talking about the impact of the most recent general election, the 2017 general election, and the way forward. As we open this segment with Minister Kevin Harris, want to pick up from where you left off, Minister Kevin, but want to talk, I want to mention something that caught my interest in an op-ed piece in the, I think it was the National Guardian. Former senior parliamentarian and in the Progressive Liberal Party, Mr. Phil Galanis, in his piece, said something that I found quite interesting. His view was that the Progressive Liberal Party's devastating loss in the general election was due to the party's ignoring the views of the Bahamian people, allowing ministers to do, in his words, whatever they wanted to, whenever they wanted to, however they wanted to, without fear of being penalized. Do you share his sentiment?
Absolutely. I believe that the nation watched as former cabinet ministers in the Christie administration seemed to be unchecked and seemed as if they were not being chastised when wrongdoing was being brought to the surface. There were a number of issues or a number of opportunities where the former prime minister had a chance to demonstrate leadership by reining in some of his cabinet ministers and being able to say to the country that it is country above these individuals, that their behavior is not acceptable. Some of the decisions, he didn't even shuffle the cabinet, which he had an opportunity to do.
Well, I mean, some would argue that that's not necessary to have have good governance.
I think so. In this case, it may have been, though, because he had an opportunity to even switch out. I mean, it's like a basketball game. Sometimes you bring in some of the fresh players, maybe when some of the guys need a rest. So if you've got one or two cabinet ministers that are not performing well and that are bringing embarrassment to your administration, sometimes you may need to go to your bench and bring up one or two of the newbies and allow them a chance to perform and to give them some experience and to say to the country, I am prepared to do what's necessary on behalf of this country, not just to keep myself where I'm at or to keep them, meaning the former cabinet ministers, where they're at. And I believe that he made the wrong decision in trying to ignore and bypass the behavior and some of the big decisions some of these cabinet ministers did.
I would say there is a sentiment that Perry Christie, former Prime Minister Christie, has a track record of having cabinet ministers in place for the full duration. In his previous term, he pretty much did the same thing, unlike someone like a Prime Minister Ingram, former Prime Minister, or former Prime Minister Pinlin, that had a habit of shuffling the bench, as we say, throughout the term, sometimes twice or three times, I believe, on occasions. At least some of the cabinet has been shuffled. And so he has a track record, if you will, of leaving his ministers in place. And some argue that it is good for continuity, for works that were being done, projects that were being carried out. You have people who are in place who know the runnings of those ministries and can get on the ground and get running right away. For example, even the first Christie administration, you had Minister Fred Mitchell in Foreign Affairs, and there are others who came back in the second term. So not only did they serve throughout the first term in those positions, but there can be some value to that, experience and so forth. However, your point is taken, and I believe the majority of people very well may share your view, that it added to the perception of corruption and the people basically, I guess, owning these ministries, if you will, ministers being so comfortable that they it might have served them well if there was.
The country didn't benefit from new ideas. Let's say, for instance, in 2002 to 2007, you had ministers in certain portfolios, and then you put them right back in 2012, right? Well, what new, fresh ideas? Wouldn't it have been better if the former Minister of Foreign Affairs was given a fresh, new portfolio to demonstrate his effectiveness and skill set, maybe somewhere else, and perhaps the former Minister of Aviation, she could have gone somewhere different in the second term, perhaps to lend her skill set and to see how she can bring reform to those areas. So I didn't necessarily agree that was the best decision based upon continuity. Also, you've got to remember now, when you have blatant infractions being committed, where, for instance, during the second term, there was this story that one cabinet minister who sat in the position on one day for another cabinet minister granted a nollie, for an example. Well, that was very disconcerting, and it was very problematic. A lot of people didn't like it. This was an opportunity for the Prime Minister to demonstrate complete leadership in having that matter dealt with, by having maybe a shuffle being done at that particular point, or to simply have the matter addressed. They decided to do neither. So what that did was it built upon the mistrust that was already been planted from the first referendum during the second term, which was the gaming referendum. And so all you were doing was building a case as they were going along, while the Bahamian people were saying, you know what, this crew is already behaving badly, we don't like what's going on, we're going to wait our turn, and we're going to deal with them.
Question. We started off in the first segment talking about the referendum and the impact of it, and of course we wanted to get through that, but it's very important to clear up and to make the point. Do you believe that there's an overdependence in our country on the leader, the Prime Minister, to be the beginning and the end of everything that happens in our country? Is that good for the country? Do you accept that view? And secondly, is that good for the country?
Well, I just think it's become a part of our culture where we do have a very high dependency upon the leader, and in this case being the Prime Minister. I don't think it necessarily has to be that way. That is why in this new term, this new F&M administration, the one positive thing that has happened is the current Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Minnis, has indicated he will be a Prime Minister with a portfolio, that he will start to change the paradigm as to how we look at the top-tier leadership. What I see Dr. Minnis doing is saying to the nation, this is truly a cabinet or a team effort. I am the captain. I will be steering the ship, but I have confidence within the men and women I've asked to sit at the table with me. And so by his first historic decision, this is the first time, we have not had a Prime Minister that has either held a portfolio or not served as Minister of Finance. It is also the first time in our history that a physician is in the office of Prime Minister. So the paradigm is already changing. The concept is changing already. And so I don't believe that it has to be that way, where the country just only sees the Prime Minister as the only person that can bring about results or reform.
Yet others argue that having no portfolio is simply a means by which you have the opportunity to meddle in every ministry.
And I think that would only be possible if that's your personality, but it doesn't seem like to me that's Dr. Minnis' personality.
I guess time will tell.
Yeah, from what I gathered, what he was saying was that he wanted to have a CEO approach to governing. He wanted to do something different. And that was, he wanted to be able to look over everyone's work and to be able to sit with them and to work with them to make sure that they are performing the way they should and to assist along the way. That's what I gathered.
Okay, let's take the results. You talked about what you believe the election results meant to the Bahamian people and why they acted in such a dramatic fashion as far as the numbers. You now have a new administration, and just recently in the budget debates, I heard these interesting comments, and I listened to some of it myself, took time out to listen to the current Minister of Works in his presentation and a few others, and read up on much of what some of the other presenters, and found an interesting point that is consistent with the past, where we haven't actually have a new paradigm, and that is, the criticisms. You have an enormous amount of information being put out about these alleged corrupt actions of the former administration, former ministers, ranging from things we knew already, issues like the BAMSI the project that was being built, the dormitories that burnt down without insurance and things that should never have happened and why they happened, to any number of other what some may call scandals or others may refer to as negative, having a negative impact on what the past administration, leases, or just gory stuff coming out. I mean, just a lot of mess. And so these are being fleshed out on the 4 opposition members, and they're literally seemingly drowning under the weight of all this barrage of information and revelations about what appears to be corrupt activities. Aren't we just rehashing the past, where every time a government gets in office, they spend the first year just highlighting what the former administration did, as if people didn't get rid of the former administration because they weren't happy with their performance? What benefit is there to the country to continue this, which has been done by both parties, dwelling on what the failures of the past, the government administration that was removed from office? Is that beneficial to the country?
I think what's important is that the country expects a report card on the performance of the previous administration, particularly during a budget debate. So this is customary. It is necessary for every cabinet minister to give an update to the Bahamian people. Here is what I found once I got there. Because if you all thought it was this bad, boy, you all ain't seen nothing yet. And I think that's what we're getting now.
Yeah, but I mean, but the people would have already known that it was bad. That's why they acted in such a drastic fashion.
But see, in some of these cases, though, the people are now gasping for breath. Because the revelations
How does that help the people?
Well, it helps in the sense that it, first of all, says, from a political standpoint, you further pushed your enemy down a notch. Yeah, but in terms of nationally, though, the way it helps our people is that it now gives them something to compare the new administration to. Because if I am a particular minister, and I am saying, here's what I found that was so bad or egregious when I got there, well, by the next budget communication, the Bahamian people want to hear 1 year from now, what did you do to help fix and turn around what you found there? So there's a positive in it. Because I said I found A, B, and C, then they want to know, okay, great, we hear you, we accept it, we understand how bad it was, we didn't know it was that bad. So in 1 year's time, when the Minister of Works takes to his feet, they want to hear, what were you able to do with your budget, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, et cetera, et cetera. In the 12-month fiscal period, what did you do to help correct what you met, and what were some of your own initiatives were you able to put in place?
One of the criticisms that have been levied at the new government early is that in the process of the 2017 budget debate that has passed, that the government in its campaign vigorously promised earnestly that as soon as it got in office, it would provide relief to the Bahamian people on value-added tax being removed from bread basket items. The budget was read and presented, no mention. How do you expect the Bahamian people to give the government a pass on something that it earnestly promised it would execute on once it came to office?
Well, I believe the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Peter Turnquest, was very clear. I'm not sure if it was during the budget communication, but I know he certainly had a public audience with the country by way of some media opportunity, where he indicated that it was certainly the intention for them to move ahead with that initiative to remove value-added tax from bread basket items. But when they got there and saw how bad it was, his expression, I believe, was that the cupboards were bare.
But every administration makes that point.
Yeah, but
the Progressive Liberal Party in 2012 said they didn't know how bad it is. The Free National Movement in 2007 came with the same excuse. In 1992, when the Ingram administration took over from Pinlin, the Treasury was broke. I mean, people really, I believe, Minister Harris, don't care much about excuses. If you are in,
but I don't think
they expect.
I don't think
just
he's
one
making
more
an
point.
excuse, though.
They expect an opposition who have members in the House who, if I'm not mistaken, has sits as chair of the Finance Committee,
the Public Accounts Committee,
Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, have knowledge of, maybe not all, but certainly has knowledge as to the state of the economy. We all knew the economy wasn't doing well, and government was borrowing a lot of money and so on. So I'm simply making the point, and this point is not just to the new administration, it is to the practice, that you can't promise people to provide relief if they elect you, and then tell them when you get elected, well, give me another year or two. That's simply just not honest or fair.
No, but I think in terms of honesty, I appreciate the fact that they were coming right out the gate and saying, look, we have a problem here. There's something that...
And the people are saying you knew the problem before you got in.
Well, not necessarily, because the F&M made the commitment on the campaign trail that this is something that they had hoped that they'll be able to do right away.
They didn't say hope.
Okay, well, they wanted to do it right away.
They said that they would execute it.
The
and
bottom
people
line,
believe that they would.
The bottom line is, from what I heard, and this is what I heard, that the minister was saying, we aren't going to be able to do it out of the gate in our first fiscal year, but it's coming. We're not going to renege on our promise. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. Just give us a little bit more time to get our affairs in order so that we can have a smooth financial transition while we look at dealing with this very complicated instrument called value-added tax. That's what I heard.
And I think the message going forward for voters is be careful not to expect political oppositions to live up to their promises, and certainly not immediately in the first year in office. You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Alive knows what you do today will determine the success of your tomorrow. So we've invested in world-class infrastructure and innovation so every business in the Bahamas can grow. Like our online business account that lets you manage all your business mobiles simply and efficiently through one portal. From adding users and numbers to drilling down where you can view details of individual data, calls, and texts to providing an immediate overview of usage month on month. We put you in control. Our people are here to help your business grow. Our relationship managers take the time to understand your business. And with our care team and our Alive stores, we are there to support your business needs. So let's work together, Bahamas. Let's grow together. Let us be part of your team. Let's do this.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
It's a new day. This is our new day. And in the blue glow of the morning, there's still time to reach back into our dreams, to become dreamers in the daylight, and live our lives and hopes with open eyes. Yes, this is the day to do the things that will fill our lives with joy and with love. Dreamers in the daylight, anything is possible. This is our new day. We are alive.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama Coconut Milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau.
I don't wanna win. No, no, I don't wanna win.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. And on our program today, we are, in this final segment, talking with Minister Kevin Harris, who's a pastor, but also a nationalist, I'd call him. He is very involved in the political life of our country. Minister Harris, there are, is it 7 or 9 pastors elected this term?
I think you've got the number, the range right. I can't recall the exact number, but in this administration, historically, I believe this is the first time that we've seen this many senior pastors or ordained ministers, pardon me, and senior pastors combined, involved in the body politics, and those, some of them now sit in the cabinet, and then there are those that are leading perhaps other areas of government and serving as members of parliament, and even some in the Senate.
Coincidence or?
I just think it's God. I don't call it coincidence. I believe that my late pastor, Dr. Miles Monroe, really gave us a snapshot through his prophetic utterances and words before he died, that we would see some things that we've never seen before, that we would see some new faces emerging. He could not have been any more true, because when you talk about seeing things you've never seen before, for the first time in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas history, a sitting prime minister loses his seat during a general election, never seen before.
And history, I had on a previous program said it's never happened in the Caribbean. Only once in the Caribbean before have a sitting prime minister lost his seat in a very small Caribbean island.
I think it was Grenada.
Nation.
It may have been Grenada.
And it certainly was shocking. No, I don't know of any honest analyst that expected the former Prime Minister Christie to go down in that fashion.
Well, you know, when you think about it, there were some guys who are really the pundits on radio. They call the talk shows a lot. And even my good friend Charlie Moss, who ran for the DNA, they were saying for at least the last 2 years that this was going to happen.
But history didn't support that. I mean, we've heard those talks so many times in the past.
But not the way these guys were talking and doing. Even though history may have not supported it from a socio-political perspective, the bottom line was these were the guys on the ground. They were touching people. They were in the homes. They knew that the tide was shifting, but nobody was listening to them. So when the results came down, it was a revelation for some, but it was a confirmation for others.
Let's move ahead and let's talk about the future of our country. Very important for us to look at what is ahead. Obviously, as I said in the beginning of the program, it is certainly our hope that the new administration have all the success in the world, because it's to our benefit as a country. Time will prove whether or not they've learned the lessons that we talked about so much in most of our segments so far of the past, and whether they truly become humble servants of the people, committed to being honest and doing what the people desire. But there are a few issues that has lingered for a long time. The issue of crime. There are we can go back to 92 and talk about promises made by the then new administration of the Free National Movement. When we had the chairman, Sidney Colley, of the Free National Movement on just before the election, he alluded to the fact that the Free National Movement was the last party in power to carry out capital punishment, and certainly it has been noted over the years a number of initiatives that that administration has done to stiffen penalty on serious crime. And the Progressive Liberal Party has also done their fair share of work in working on what they call swift justice, and done a number of good to help the country's court system and crime in general. However, it gets worse and worse. And you look at our society, you look at the United States and other places, and when you compare per capita, we are really doing worse than most people understand. And let me put some perspective to that. You have a city like Chicago with over 6 million people. I mean, you're talking about a population that, I mean, we would sit in as a fraction of their population. And when they have 1,000 murders compared to us with, or, well, their numbers are higher than that, but over 1,000 murders compared to us having 100 and some, that number of 120 or 30 or 40 murders might just sound like 130, but when you go and go to a city with 6 or 8 million people that's having 900 or 1,000 or 1,200 murders, you realize that just the sheer magnitude of the population compares. So my point is, we're not doing well. And if you look at the examples of Trinidad, of Barbados, of Jamaica, you will realize that they have gone that same road, being a touristic destination that people came to just frolic and to have a good time, and also to relax and be at peace and enjoy the tranquil environment that we have. And when you have this erosion, which started with the drug trade, but now has mushroomed into much larger than that. I mean, you just in the recently, I saw another headline where another person out on bail in ankle bracelets that got executed. I've always thought, by the way, that whole exercise, I think it was under the Tommy Turnquest administration, well, the Ingram administration, but Tommy Turnquest as minister, when that was instituted, with this whole policy of electronic monitoring, I always thought it was nonsense. You know, for me, you have a major crime issue in your country, and you're coming up with all sorts of programs and plans that are nice ideas, but doesn't address the root of the problem and doesn't tackle the root of the problem. And you spend millions and millions of dollars doing what many people see as these fancy programs that don't really achieve the objective at the end of the day, which is to reduce crime. And so wanted to just ask you on the issue of crime. Now, I've said a lot. What do you expect of the government, and should the people of the Bahamas, the Prime Minister is on record in opposition to be saying, I remember his speech where he said, hang or hung, it don't matter. If they got elected, the Bahamian people should expect that there's going to be capital punishment being restored in our country. Is that realistic, Minister Kevin Harris?
Well, I believe that the Prime Minister is now armed with a talented team, particularly in the legal profession, by way of the Attorney General, the Minister of State in the Attorney General office, and others who sit around the table who are also attorneys. Brent Simmons is an attorney, Darren Hanfield is an attorney. They may be in different areas, but Dion Folks is an attorney.
They all sit at the cabinet table.
They all sit at the cabinet table.
And for the record, most of them, I've talked to them, most of them don't particularly share the country's, the majority of the population's view about capital punishment.
Well, that's just that may be a personal perspective, but as you said, if there was a commitment made to the Bahamian people by way of the campaign, the Prime Minister then and his team will have to look to see what is our legal pathway to accomplishing this goal. How do we legally put in place the things that will make this a part of the reality for the Bahamian people? I believe, from my own personal perspective, that we have to address crime from a multifaceted level. I think what would be important for the Minister administration to do is to bring some of the stakeholders to the table with the cabinet, people who are working already in the community on reform efforts for those who are coming out of prison. There are people who have programs and organizations that work inside the prison. There are people who have been trying to do preventative things before men or women or young people go to prison. Bring these people together as well so that some of the preventative things and programs can be put in place so that we can discourage some of these people from ever going into prison or committing crimes. And second of all, for those who are coming outside of prison and coming back into the social part of our country, into the populace, let's engage some of the people who are already doing programs and have organizations. Let's bring them a part of the government's initiative, the same way the Bush administration had a program geared toward faith-based organizations to help the social agenda of America. You can do the same thing so that those who are coming out, you can help reduce the rate of those returning back to prison.
But all of these things that you've shared, Minister Harris, is good in of themselves, and yes, would add to helping the overall situation, but all of these have been tried before. Some would argue that what haven't been tried, certainly not in the last 30 years or 25 years, is getting radical, doing things like executing convicted murderers, and just strengthening the back of law enforcement in general. You are retreading methods that has brought limited success, expecting to deal with what has become a worsening problem.
No, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think some of the ideas that I've espoused, some of them have not worked. I don't think we've ever really had a real partnership with some of those agencies to the point where we've engaged them.
The Ingram administration. The Ingram administration back in the 90s came up with, it wasn't called faith-based initiative, but that's exactly what it did. It provided funding and support, customs exemption on certain things imported to aid in reaching young people, particularly youth programs. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Minister Shivago Lang might have been minister or junior minister, one of them, in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture at the time. But he played a role, I know, in helping to bring about some of those programs. And the government at the time was literally providing funding support for many churches and organizations.
Right, but
and
that may be fine. Those are some of the faith-based
but
initiatives.
But
I'm talking about some of the actual social programs that are actually involved in reform, that are actually involved and work hand in hand. Well, there are programs, of course. We know about Youth Against Violence. We know about Teen Challenge. There is a program led by Troy Clark that is really designed to reform for those who are coming out of prison who are looking for a way of being reformed, so to help reduce.
But to be clear, just to be clear, again, I say all those are notable items. However, statistics shows, and study in the U.S. shows, that most offenders of serious crimes are not helped by, and the U.S., you can have more programs in the United States. They are not helped by that. Criminal minds, those who have gotten in trouble with the law for serious crimes, have had a track record, a significant record of repeat offending. And most of these social programs seem to do better at helping petty offenders not getting into more serious criminal activities. But for the most part, Minister Harris, once criminals take on a life of crime and make a commitment to do that, as a government, I believe you only have two choices. You either have to, if their crimes warrant death, execute them, or lock them away until they can do society no more harm. Because if you look even now in our culture, in our society today, at the amount of repeat offenders and what they call the recidivism rate, but also people who get arrested. I like to say that people who get arrested for murder, a lot of them get let out on bail and they get executed within weeks. So society is taking justice into its own hands because government is failing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think the big ticket item here is the issue of capital punishment. And that's why I said,
Not the only issue, but...
No, but I think it's a big ticket item. I believe a lot of Bahamians would like to see capital punishment being carried out in this country.
And you believe the Minnis administration is going to be able to get that?
Well, again, I believe that the Minnis administration will have to find their pathway to be able to acknowledge and to complete a commitment. If that is what they put on the table, they're going to have to find a pathway to do it. But in terms of what the Bahamian people want, I for one support it. Capital punishment. I believe the Bahamian people want to see things happen in a way where it sends a clear message to would-be or existing criminals that here is your fate if you continue along this path. And I think it's something that the country seriously needs to take a look at.
Oh, great. Let's move on and talk about two other issues before we wrap up. One is Grand Bahama, my hometown. Tremendous hardship, tremendous suffering over the last countless years. More certainly beyond the past administration of the Progressive Liberal Party. I heard in the, I believe it was, if it wasn't a budget presentation, no, certainly it was a speech from the throne. Heavy emphasis, very encouraging, heavy emphasis on things that is proposed to be done in Grand Bahama to lift the economy of Grand Bahama. In fact, the Hawksbill Creek Agreement amendment, I believe, that the Progressive Liberal Party administration, the Christie administration, had gotten done, there's a proposal that this government is prepared to go and revoke that and to come up with a new agreement, and I think in cooperation with the port, with the Grand Bahama Port Authority. And any number of other things, initiatives, plans to get investment back in Grand Bahama to get that economy moving again, which is necessary. And if the government can pull it off, they already have all the seats in Grand Bahama, but it's possible that if they can bring that kind of life to Grand Bahama again and revive that, notwithstanding what happens in the next election, they might be assured of getting those seats back. But having said that, what's your thoughts about the chances of them having that heavy focus on Grand Bahama, being able to get that economy moving again and accomplish things that not even the previous FNM administration under Ingram between 2007 and 2012 was able to do?
Well, I think the Minnis administration has a good chance at really transforming Grand Bahama. I think that, first of all, starting with their parliamentary team. They've got 5 seats. They've got a dynamic group of young, vibrant professionals. They've got a few senators also there in Grand Bahama now that are also very young and very talented, who I believe can help the government in its goals and its efforts. From my personal standpoint, I believe I have some ideas that I believe that are very, could be very successful. I think that if they can get persons to the table that can help in formulating what's the plan. We have this product that we want to sell. It's called Grand Bahama. How do we get airlift? How do we get persons in through the sea? How do we get more people on the island? How do we get more of them as stay or stopover visitors? How do we bring more money into the economy through through tourist visitors participation? And then secondly, how do we look at industry in terms of Grand Bahama? What can we attract companies here to create manufacturing plant opportunities, assembly line opportunities, bring their businesses here to Grand Bahama, by extension, employing people in Grand Bahama. Third, how do we help the entrepreneurs in Grand Bahama to thrive? Existing businesses, those who want to get in business in Grand Bahama.
As we wrap up, all talked about before, let's see what the Minnis administration does. I wish them well. Last of all, quickly, can't leave without quickly taking 30 seconds and saying, what is the Progressive Liberal Party, has it learned its lesson from the last election? It now has a leader who's from the Christie era, that the former Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis. Will he survive in the Progressive Liberal Party as leader to the next 5 years? Is he likely to make it through?
I think if the Progressive Liberal Party wanted to make themselves attractive for the next general election, they had 2 choices. That's either Glenys Hanna Martin or the new Chester Cooper, because Philip Brave Davis will not be attractive as head of the ticket in any general election, much less in 2022. Davis has been around for a while. He is a monotone presenter. He doesn't.
But some say Minnis was not the most exciting presenter
No,
either.
I think this is by far different from any conversation with Dr. Minnis. I think Brave Davis sits in his own category. I think that he is one of the least energetic leaders we've ever seen.
You're being biased on that count.
No, I'm not. I'm telling you. I think that if you watch Glennis Hanna Martin's presentation in the House of Assembly in recent time versus Brave Davis, it's clear who would be a better leader for the PLP.
Some would argue otherwise about the Free National Movement, that they had the same challenge, and so if Dr. Minnis made it, it's possible that Brave could. But I hear you. On behalf of all of us at Nation Building, I want to thank you this week for tuning into our program. Hope it has been very informative for you. And stay tuned for next week's edition of Nation Building. Have a great one.